Right, so we turn our attention now on security and what we've done, what we plan to do, how do we improve from where we are at the moment. We've got two gentlemen in the studios, again from our studios in Abuja. First is Emmanuel Onwubiko, who is a former Federal Commissioner of National Human Rights Commission, that's the NHRC. He is the National Coordinator, Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria, that's HURIWA. And then we also have Ayobami Akonji, who is a security consultant and also a member of the APC's Presidential Campaign Council for 2015 and 2019. Gentlemen, thank you both for coming on today. Ms. Onwubiko, let me start with you. From your assessment of how you've seen the handling of the security challenge that we've got in the country today, what would you say?
Okay. Well, I would say that it's not quite impressive, except somebody who does not stay in Nigeria, or maybe somebody who lives in another planet entirely, will jump into the hasty conclusion of saying it is satisfactory. The security situation in Nigeria is quite horrendous. Currently, most Nigerians do not feel free to exercise their fundamental human rights. I mean, the right to freedom of movement. You know, when you say it is difficult for citizens to exercise their fundamental, human rights, which is quite basic, the right to, movement, it presupposes that the state of insecurity has become so troubling, so traumatizing, that it's quite difficult for anybody to move from point A to point B without being having this, not seeing this kind of a fear that you might be attacked by armed, hoodlums. Different, kinds of freelance armed hoodlums have been unleashed on the society, and they're all over the place. So it's something that goes beyond partisan politics, something that is quite very serious, that everybody...
Pardon me to jump in.
We have to...
Could you be a little more specific? Because governments, jointly and severally, have put in place several measures. They've approached things differently to see how they could stem the tide. So could you be a little more specific? Which specific case can you refer to?
Well, I'm referring to the fact that Nigerians who are commuting from point A to point B no longer feel safe to travel. Most of them have been, a lot of Nigerians have been assassinated, have been killed by all kinds of freelance armed hoodlums all over the place. Not too long ago, some few days back in Enugu, a priest of the Catholic Church was killed by some suspected hoodlums. And there are quite a number of cases. In Zamfara State, in more than 2 or 3 years or so, most parts of that state have been devastated, have been destroyed by armed, bandits, kidnappers all over the place. Even in the state of origin of our president, Katsina State, is not quite safe. It's not quite safe. Even the most respected traditional ruler from that state, I think the Emir of Katsina, not too long ago, voiced his opinion, which represents a preponderance opinion of the people in Nigeria, that the measures that have been put in place are they're not very sustainable. It's not the kind of measures that Nigerians need. We need something that is quite sustainable over a period of time. It's not just you wait until hoodlums strike, then you begin to ask soldiers, begin to ask the police people, please rush to that particular scene, make sure you arrest the culprits. That's not the issue. Government has to put deliberate plans in place to check the influx of sophisticated weapons, small weapons and other kinds of ammunition that are coming in from all over the country.
Just a minute. Let me bring in Mr. Akonji here on the same subject matter. Can you relate with what he has said?
To be honest, yeah, I know that thank you for having me. I know that, yeah, we're having some few issues. We're having some pockets of issues, security issues across the country. But I'd rather see it from a different holistic point of view, which is the sense that Yes, we have some few issues, but what has been done to solve those issues? And we have a plethora of operations going on to contain this security challenges the country is facing right now, to see how we can restore order and sanity into the system. Of course, he made allusions to someone who was kidnapped or insecurity in the president's state in Dara. Of course, the magazine Gary was kidnapped, unfortunately, but we're impressed to see that the security services were able to get him out of the kidnappers within after about 50, 60 days or so. So rather, we are seeing a deliberate effort of government to not just contain the security issues, but to find a lasting solution to it. And by finding that solution to it, it's of course provide more other holistic investment into the country. But the government and the security agencies are doing so well to see how these issues can be contained. And I also think we need to also see how the citizens play a role in this, because it's not just about them. We also need to share intelligence and share information with security agencies across the entire country to see how this crisis can be nipped in the bud. It's not only for the country, it's not only for the security agencies, for every Nigerian to play a role to see how peace and stability can be restored in the country. We have so much to do. We are doing so much to contain it, and I guess that, and I believe that so much will be done to contain these issues we're having across the country. It's a red flag, but honestly, progress has been made.
Do you think that, as you say, so much is being done? You think the people are getting that same impression?
Yeah, people are getting that impression across board. If you're following what's happening, I mean, we're getting feedback from Nigerians who are now deciding to work and support the security agencies' information. And this has led to the breakthrough in a lot of high-profile cases as one. And two, like I'll delve a bit into the policy of the community policing officer, which the IGP of police wants to implement very soon, which is about community policing. Now, you're going to have 40,000 Nigerians who will be employed, 50 per local governments. Now, this is what we're trying to say. We're talking about how we can restructure or rejig the security architecture of the country. And if you're having 50 policemen per local government across the country to help in the fight against crime, banditry, insurgency, oil bunkery, cultism, it will go a very long way. And what makes this very interesting is that you're having people who are from this state where this crisis is happening, from the local government. One, that will free in a lot of policemen who are doing like two jobs at the same time. They'll be able to move into the other jobs while the CPOs will fill in that gap. And of course, they're going to help information and intelligence. So I believe that once this has been implemented, we'll see a high rate of reduction in the spate of insecurity across the country. You go to the southwest, the military has...
Just give us a moment. We'll come back to this in just a moment and let both of you weigh in on the community policing policy. All right, welcome back, Mr. Konji. Go ahead and conclude your points before we bring in Mr. Onwubiko on the community policing policy of the government.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm saying that one of the issues that we noticed that with the security issues in the country is the fact that there's been little collaboration between the community and the security agencies. And that's why the federal government, through the IGP of the police, bettered the idea of having a community policing officers, you know, which is supposed to see how you can actually help bridge that gap of void. And now with this implementation, we expect to see that this will actually drive the fight against insurgency, or the fight against banditry or kidnapping, wherever issue we're facing in the country, to the next level. And this is the fact that you're having people from society work as security agents, and they will also communicate these issues they have with security agencies. So I think if we can bridge this gap of having proper intelligence from society or from the community across the entire country, it will actually help us so well in trying to see how we can fight the crisis we're having. Like 2 days ago, I was just over the weekend, the Air Force were able to give a very serious fight to the Boko Haram and ISWAP fighters in the northeast. And this was thanks to actionable intelligence from the civilians who actually stay around where this vicinity was happening. So we need more of this collaboration. It's not just enough to have security agencies going to a flashpoint. They need to have people who are there. The people who reside there are like their eyes. So they're the ones who are going to help them so they can find the bad guys, smoke them out, and ensure that the peace and stability in the polity.
Mr. Onwubiko, doesn't that community policing, the concept or policy of government, count for something?
Well, I think it's just a cosmetic measure. is not a measure that is sustainable over a period of time. Look at the Constitution. What does the Constitution say? How is the police operationally supposed to be in this country? Have we reformed the policing institution in the country? We have not. We're still operating under the very old system that has not worked. It takes a man who has no idea. I'm not referring to any government. I don't belong to any political party, because the shock that most of us in the civil society have had to go through in the past couple of years is this kind of rivalry and competition between the two dominant parties, PDP and APC, even playing on the sensitivity of the security situation in the country, maybe trying to see who will outsmart each other. It's not all about party or who becomes the president, who becomes the governor. It's about our country that we're talking about. It's about our nation. It's about our children. It's about our generations that are yet unborn. So you're talking about community policing. How are you going to oppress community policing when the Constitution has made it mandatory that you must have a centralized governance structure for the police? It's not going to work. So now you have a country where you have a constitution that says the governor of a state is supposed, if you look at it from, well, I don't know, I don't really know, they say the governor is the chief security officer of the state. But the governor in actuality does not have any direct command and control over the commissioner of police in his own state. The command and control structure resides in Abuja. So how are you going to operate this so-called community policing? It's different from what obtains in the UK, where you have metropolitan police, or what obtains in the US, where you have different rural policing structures that are quite effective. My friend that is just sitting by my right-hand side made a comment that something happened in Katsina. In fact, the traditional ruler of our president was kidnapped by armed bandits. He's saying that it took 60 days, and he's saying it's an effort that has been made. What kind of policing is that? In the UK, when a crime occurs, it takes nothing less than 24 hours. In fact, if a crime is taking place in an environment and the police does not respond within 8 minutes, so the period of response matters a lot. A man has been kidnapped, kept in God knows where, and he spent an average of two months. He's even lucky, maybe because he's a traditional ruler of a very prominent person in the country, the president of a very big country like Nigeria. Maybe he's a traditional ruler of a small community like my own in Imo State, maybe they'll just forget about him. Government will not even care about him. Nobody will be ready to pay ransoms. So what kind of a society is this? You have a structure of security in place whereby somebody can just be picked up and he will not be released. Those who have picked him up, who have kidnapped him, will not be arrested and prosecuted. Even when they are arrested, you begin to play politics. You have a governor of Zamfara State. Incidentally, he is even a PDP governor, negotiating with armed bandits. That's what we're saying. Then you have instances whereby citizens of this country are kidnapped. Then you have people begin to negotiate, and the police, now you have a country. The country is so large. You have over 200 million citizens in this country. The policing institution can only boast of less than 10 people who have been able, who are experts, who can crack, who can just go out and try to resolve some very funny security issues. Maybe you mentioned Mr. Kerry and maybe just a few other people. Why can't we build a policing institution that will have at least 100,000 Mr. Kerrys, not just one person?
Mr. Obiko,
it's not going to work.
So are you suggesting that rather than focus on community police, maybe what we should be looking at is state police? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, whether you call it community policing, whether you call it state policing, whether you call it local policing, whether you call it rural policing, what is at play is the command and control structure. Is it being centralized? Is it being decentralized? You understand? Do you need the authorization of one person who stays in Abuja? For instance, a priest was killed in Enugu. It took Mr. President, who is here in Abuja, to give a directive. Go after the kidnappers. Why must Mr. President sit in Abuja? Why would the country operate a law whereby you need just one person who will sit in Abuja and tell the police that it's in Enugu or in Zamfara or in Sokoto, go after those armed bandits? Why can't you have a country where those kind of measures will be activated almost automatically? Then you talk about intelligence gathering.
Let's bring in Mr. Akonji here briefly. Now, you've listened to Mr. Nwubiko, and he's saying that, you know what, it's beyond community policing, it's beyond state policing. It is about decentralizing the security architecture in the country. And that's something a lot of people have talked about. So shouldn't this be something this government is looking into or should be looking into right now?
Of course, in the affirmative. But I think before I go into your question, I need to make some proper clarity here. He mentioned the fact that the police is not even reformed. There are two bills we have. We have a police trust fund bill, which was passed and signed by the press, which is going to be signed by the president. And we have the police reform bill. These are two fundamental bills that has been passed. And the entire objective of this bill is that they can actually retool, requip, reform, and then ensure that the police becomes a working institution to protect Nigerians in the country. And fine, coming to decentralization of security apparatus of the country is fantastic, is what we're talking about. We're saying the same thing. State policing, community policing is the same thing, just different grammatical expression to express what it is. But community policing is decentralizing of security architecture in the country. I mean, we're talking about having 50 people per local government across the 704 local government. This has been decentralized already. We have less than 300,000 police force in the country. And this, they said about half of them are already with VIPs. So if you're having an extra 40,000 men to be policemen in the country, it's quite small, but I mean, it's a very formidable and welcome development in trying to equip our police personnel and ensure that things get better. Mind you, they took about 10,000 police officers this year. They took about 6,000 last year. And I think they took about some the previous year. So you're having different multilateral strategies and approaches to see how they can equip and find more personnel to join the police service forces and also see how they can also contain the entire. So this is actually decentralizing of security. The governors play a significant role here. If you follow the president in the past 2, 3 weeks or 4 weeks, he's been meeting thought leaders from the southwest, from the southeast, and from the south. And he's been saying that we are going to be collaborating with the state governors to see how we can equip the police and also find them, will probably ensure that they have more technologies. And this fight they are doing, because it's so much in their table. You need technology, you need intelligence, you need more equipment, you need more personnel. There's a lot of things that you need actually to ensure that the entire gamut is done properly. And then you can actually effectively contain and have an internal security that is safe for prospective Nigerians or prospective foreigners to come and invest in the country for the growth of everybody. So it's a win-win thing. It's not APC, it's not PDP. It's Nigeria first. And after Nigeria is secured and safe for investment and development, then we can discuss politics. But for now, I expect and I hope that every of the political parties will come together to ensure that we can have peace and harmony in the country.
Many people who may have had encounters, direct encounters with bandits, kidnappers in particular, may not agree with you that enough is being done. Those who have been victims themselves and the people whose loved ones have been victims may not agree with you that government is doing substantially enough to convince them or persuade them that government is dealing with security issues in this nation head on. What would you say to them?
I'd like to first of all seek for their support, but I also like them to actually also know what's happening, because I think last about 10 days ago, the IGP of police revealed out a fact sheet of what he's done from the first from January this year till now, which is under the Operation Puff Harder. And this is an operation that actually has services from all the armed forces, from the DSS, from the Air Force, from the Army, and the police, and I think the Civil Defense Force. And they said within the last 6-7 months, they've had about over 4,000 high-profile cases. And they broke it down into they segmented them. You have kidnapped victims, you have robbery, you have cultism, you have weapons that were gotten, and these facts were actually there. Okay, fine. We were able to rescue about over 500 kidnapped victims. Broke them state by state. Zamfara had the highest, about 300. followed by FCT and other parts. So you can see that the fact is there. The armed forces and the services security agencies are doing their very much best to see how they can nip this crisis on the board, to win the public confidence. And this is happening because you can see that the public is actually now showing that we are also stakeholders in this fight, and they're actually supporting them with right intelligence they need. We can't do this. This war can't be fought alone with saying them against us. We are all stakeholders in this fight. All of us are actually stakeholders in this fight. I'll use this medium to call Nigerians to see how they can support the armed forces, support the security agencies that are doing so much, so well. They are paying the supreme price for our safety, they are paying the supreme price for our care, for our well-being. So the least we can do to support them with what we can, anything that we think is right to see how we can do to support, let's support them. Let's be careful with hate speech, let's be careful with passing fake news, and let's come back to the focus and see what's happening, the focal points of things. And the government is actually doing so well, so good, and so much to restrain, to contain, and ensure that we have a peaceful and secure country.
Is that Nigerians need to support government more in this in the fight, against insecurity and all of that. How do you respond? This one is for you. How do you think the people are cooperative enough with government to going from what Mr. Akanji just said?
Well, I think Nigerians are quite ready to cooperate with government in securing their lives, their precious lives, and securing their property, because the primary duty of government is to guarantee security of lives and property according to the Constitution. Nigerians are quite ready to do that. But I think the problem we have, and I keep saying that, we need to unbundle the police. We need to decentralize the police. You cannot just decentralize the police by passing a bill, just a legislation in the National Assembly without amending the Constitution. You have to amend the relevant sections of the Constitution that will empower the various segments of the society to set up their security architecture to be able to guarantee the security of lives and property. And you cannot have quality and good enough intelligence gathering mechanisms and strategies in the country where you have a lot of armed operatives in the various armed security services, the police, the army, unleashing incivility and unleashing horrendous human rights violations against the same citizens they are paid by taxpayers to protect. The other day in Aba, a keke rider, a commercial tricycle rider, was chased down to his house by a soldier just because he refused to give him 100 naira, and he killed him. Well, an initial statement from a quarter in the army says, try to deny that, but it's something that happened in the open that everybody saw. In these days of what you call telephones, there are very high level of dissemination of information. Well, I agree that you may have some levels of, some kind of infiltration of fake news. But these cases of soldiers and police committing what they call extrajudicial executions of citizens is quite rampant. And when you begin to have that kind of cases of professional misconduct among the army, among the police, and you don't have effective measures in place, you don't have effective mechanisms in place to check such indiscipline, such professional misconduct, you will not have the cooperation, you will not have the buy-in, you will not have the ownership of the people in the fight against insecurity in the country. So the various hierarchies of the security forces must up their game. I agree that there are quite a number of measures that have been put in place in the army to ensure that the level of discipline is reduced to its nearest minimum. But as we can see, it's all over the place. If you watch the popular media, you read the newspapers, there are several cases of instances of conflicts that arise by way of the misconduct, professional misconduct of these armed security services. The other day in Taraba State, you have a case of the military killing the police who were in Taraba State to execute an arrest warrant against a suspected kidnapping. Well, Mr. President rapidly set up ordered the defense headquarters to set up a probe panel. I don't think Mr. President got it right. You don't ask the same people that have been accused of killing to set up a probe panel to probe themselves. We expect that Mr. President should set up a judicial panel of inquiry to uncover what exactly happened. That will give the populace the confidence, the trust on what the government is doing to begin to volunteer information to them. And let me also tell you, the communication networks, the National or Nigerian Communication Commission, I don't think that commission is living up to expectation. That commission is long overdue for total overhaul. They're not really working, because if the NCC is working, it will be very, it will not take, you don't need rocket science sometimes to decode where most of these kidnappers are hiding their victims, because they use telephone, they use communications. They use communications to ask people to give them ransoms, you know. So what is the NCC doing?
Mr. Obiko, there was something your organization talked about. I think you mentioned it the other time, the case of the Zamfara state governor saying that they were going to pardon, some people, and all of that. And in fact, your organization was in your report. You said your press statement. You condemned this evil policy, through this policy of handshake with bloodthirsty criminals, are dancing on the graves of the victims of the years of armed banditry and kidnapping. I don't know, well, to a number of people, I don't know what the intention of the governors are, but don't you think that they could have some reason for doing what they propose to do?
Well, when you ask the simple question, even a 100-level political science students will answer that question. If you ask him, what are the functions of governments? Why do you have governments? The other professor, the learned professor that just left your studio, a philosopher, laid everything bare. What is the function of government? The function of government, why do you have government? You have government as an institution to exercise power, to exercise leadership, to enforce laws and order. That is the reason why you have government. Government is there to enforce the laws. The government is not there to undermine the laws. And when you have constitutional democracy, what is constitutional democracy? It's not like what you have in the British, the United Kingdom, where they don't have a written constitution, even though they have a constitution that is unwritten. In our own case, we even have a well-written, documented constitution that is there, clearly spelled out, that the section 15.5, for instance, says, no government official, I'm just trying to summarize what that section says. No government official is allowed to commit abuse of power and abuse of office. When you abuse your power and abuse your office, what it simply means is that when you now seek to undermine certain laws that says if a man kills, he must face the full weight of the law. Why do you have to go into dialogue? Why do you have to go into kind of nocturnal meetings with persons that have armed themselves to the teeth and have declared war against the state and that have unleashed horrendous violence, have unleashed unprecedented destruction and mayhem in their own state, in Zamfara state?
Mr. Omiko, we will attempt to get a response when we come back in a moment. Stay with us. It is our concluding moments now, and let's get to you, Mr. Akonji. So what do you think, how do you think government should have approached this if he thinks that we've got no business, regionally or otherwise, negotiating or considering giving amnesty to bandits?
I think government has every instrument of law or whatever it is said they can actually provide peace and security for the people. Now, what's happening in Zamfara is what you have, which is called the policy of the carrot or the stick. There's a reason why they're fighting. You need to hear them out. Why are the issues? And that's what the governor of Zamfara stood. And that's why he said this cuts across party line. The governor of Zamfara has been seen to be doing extremely well. And the past time he's been sworn in as governor. And he's a PDP governor. So it doesn't matter if you're PDP or APC. All I would care about is that who leadership do we have the will to ensure that we have peace and security came about. You've seen him walking the talk. We've seen emirs who's been either dethroned or sanctioned or suspended because the governor has found them to be cohabiting with the bandits. And it says leaders who are meant to be leaders of the people should never be seen to be doing what is against the people. And that's why it's pushing them out. So if you want to give an amnesty, and this is done across the entire globe. We've seen what happened with the FARC in Colombia. We've seen LRA in Ireland. It happens. All we care about is that the government will look around and see how do we provide peace for the people. And if it means we sit down with the people to find out what are their grievances. And some of them came out to speak that they were being attacked by the community when they come to the market. They arrest them, they burn them, and then they will like, okay, fine, let's find a harmony. Let's sit on the table and let's find a working path to ensure that we can resolve this for the win for everybody. So I don't think we should actually condemn a government or a governor who is looking for a way to solve this crisis. And we're talking about the centralizing of the security crisis in the country. And this is the government taking this initiative. It's not the centralizing of the security. He finds a security solution to his problem. And if that seems to work for him, we should support him rather than come and cascade him in the public. Yeah. So what the governor is doing, we've been saying that the people, Zamfara has been better. Within the last 1 month, the high-profile cases of kidnapping there, as it's taken opposite, you have more people have been rescued by the military. The bandits are freeing more people. So it means the negotiation team within the state government and those who are the bandits is working on, is bearing the fruit we want for that. And that's what we want to see across the entire country. So I think that every state, every security peculiarity has a solution. And let's find the solution, and that comes under the stick and the carrot.
All right, Mr. Akonji, we'll end it at that point. Gentlemen, we have to thank you both for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Mr. Emmanuel Akonji is a member of APC's Presidential Campaign Council for 2015 and 2019. We've also had Mr. Emmanuel Onwubiko, former Federal Commissioner of the National Human Rights Commission, that's the NHRC, and the National Coordinator for Human Rights Association of Nigeria, Huriwa. Well, that is the show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Usof.
I'm Kayode Okikelu.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this program are those of the maker and do not reflect the views, opinions, and endorsement of Channels Television.